Good evening and good to have you with us in this edition of the Urban Debate. Over the next 1 hour, viewers, we are going to put the spotlight on COVID once again. We will first talk about that one state that has in the past 24 hours accounted for nearly 70% of India's fresh cases. We're then going to also talk about India's war against COVID and the pace of our vaccination. But first up, let's talk about Maharashtra. And let's talk about first the kind of surge we are actually seeing. Nearly 10,000 cases, 42 deaths in 24 hours. And if you see the trend in the rise in infection spread, it's actually similar to what we saw around July, August. In fact, towards July end is when we were looking at daily numbers of 9,000 and 11,000. And that's what the kind of surge we are now looking at. Which is why it is a little alarming what the situation is. And while when we speak to experts, the reasons and the possible reasons that are given to us are COVID norm violations, large gatherings, that it is wedding season, or even the fact that Maharashtra is doing a high number of tests, 80,000 tests every day, the fact that we started our local trains, now pretty much everything is functional. A large number of people come from abroad or even other states. But I want to pause here for a minute and ask you to think about it. Why is it that these reasons have become such a great cause of worry just for Maharashtra? Why is it that we are not seeing such numbers and such spikes in other states? Now, between 6 states, we see about 86% or 89% of our country's total cases. But why is it that in Delhi or Kerala or Gujarat or Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, any of the other states, are weddings not taking place there? Is everybody following the COVID norms in the crowded markets over there? Are restaurants not seeing people come in large numbers over there? Do other big cities, port cities, international airport cities not have people coming in from other parts of the country and the world? Then why is it that Maharashtra seems to be struggling a bit more than the others? Let's try and find the answer to this question. And of course, as we do that, we have to find a solution to Maharashtra's problem. What is it that the Maharashtra government, the people of Maharashtra now need to do? Dr. Abhay Shukla, National Co-Convener of the Jan Swasthya Abhiyan, joins me this evening. Dr. Sameer Dalwai, spokesperson for NCP, a developmental pediatrician himself. Dr. Subhash Salunke, Senior Advisor for Public Health Foundation in India. He's a member of the COVID-19 Task Force for Maharashtra. Dr. Om Srivastava, Director for Infectious Diseases at Jaslok Hospital, also a member of the COVID-19 Task Force. Good evening and thank you for everybody for joining in right now. Let me actually start off with Dr. Srivastava. Dr. Srivastava, what is the sense? Why is it that Maharashtra seems to be seeing such a spike unlike the other states?
So, thank you. Look, I don't think there is any one single straightforward explanation for what we are seeing. It's actually quite closely reflective upon the situation that was rampant in the month of May, June, July of last year. And as it happened at that time, it was a work in progress. We learned pretty much on a daily basis as to why these numbers are climbing. So I don't know if there is a single straightforward explanation. There are a number of things that are likely to be making sense, but they are not yet backed by scientific evidence. There is always the possibility that a strain that may not be, we may be dealing with a strain that has not yet been identified entirely. And that is going to be part of the problem, because that may be having its own dynamics of being spread, of being rampant, of being clinically a situation that we have to be more careful about. So there's probably going to be more than one explanation. There's also going to be a lot of need to look at the scientific evidence that comes with the situation such as this. Definitely what can be done insofar as the science is concerned is already being done both at the state level and the national level. But like I said, this is a work in progress. We are going to be needing to looking at the data, collating it, and making sure that a strategy that will prevent this kind of thing from snowballing or going out of hands is put into place as soon as possible. However, this is something as we learn on a daily basis, we are probably going to find that this is what has evolved, and it is upon us to be able to make a strategy, a new strategy, a brand new strategy. I say it again. I don't think there is a one single straightforward explanation for the situation or the question that you're asking, Tanvi. But I
Yes.
think that this is important to evaluate and examine in a far more robust way than what we did at this time last year, and find out what can be the best solution to a problem like this in the days to come.
Okay, Dr. Salunke, would you want to comment on this? And were there any indications or lessons or findings from last time, say in May or July, that we can perhaps look at? Do you agree with what Dr. Srivastava is saying, that there's perhaps some scientific explanation here that we need to investigate? Dr. Salunke, can you hear me? Yes, the question to you.
Yeah, sure. Thanks a lot. I think, Tanvi, let us try and understand, as Dr. Srivastava stated, there can't be one particular reason just to say that because of this. And before going into these details, let me warn as everyone, as a nation, that, you said why it is not happening in Delhi and UP and others. Let me warn the nation that what is happening today in Maharashtra, you have no business to guarantee that this won't happen in northern India and other parts of India. As a matter of fact, if we do not control it in Maharashtra, there will be a guarantee that it will be extended to other parts of India. Let us take this as a warning signal. Why? Exactly 2.5 weeks back, I was in Amravati and Akola when the spike in the cases had just started from Nagpur up to Aurangabad. And that time itself, I had spoken to our Deputy Chief Minister, Maharashtra, and informed him. I said, sir, the spike that is occurring now in weather is likely to get propagated to the other parts of Maharashtra, and eventually, if we do not alter the spread of this particular stage, it is quite possible that it will get extended to other parts of the country. So be sure that it is not that it will remain restricted only to Maharashtra. This is first and foremost. Number two, see the pandemic of this nature, which is based upon the viral disease, has ups and downs. Now we have seen down just 2 months back, and then people started feeling, oh, this is gone. And that's how the upward trend is we are going to see it, and it will remain there, or it is likely to get worse unless it is intervened in time. Please remember, all such outbreaks have agent factors, host factors, and environment factors. I'm not going to conduct the epidemiology class here. However, I can tell you one thing. All these three agent factors, as Dr. Srivastava stated, I'm really worried that whether the present viral strain that is circulating in India, even though right now ICMR is not commenting anything on that, whether there is, I personally feel the trend that is being seen, that there is definitely change in our mutation as far as virus is concerned. Good things are happening in a way that is number is increasing, but mortality doesn't seem to be to the extent that it is worse. The case fatality rate is not getting worse. That means virulence doesn't appear to be altered. So that's a good point, or the positive point. However, the environmental factors and host factors. Host is we human beings. And unfortunately, one of the major reasons why there is a spike in Maharashtra is because of the host factors. Environmental factors are not that materially making difference at this stage. That's my perception. It could be more commented upon real experts.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's take some of the points that you've raised across to our other panelists as well. Dr. Abhay Shukla, what's your view? You've heard two other experts here.
Yeah, so thanks. It was useful to hear Dr. Srivastava and Dr. Salunke's views. I would like to make 2 points here. First of all, the COVID pandemic is a counterintuitive pandemic. And the largest numbers of deaths are taking place in the most developed countries and within developing countries in the most developed areas. Now, this is counterintuitive. I mean, I'm making a bit of a generalization, but you
Yes.
know that USA, Europe, they have been far more affected than areas of Africa, which are much, much poorer, you know. So there are some things we know and some things which we do not yet know. Let's put it this way. There are three things we know about COVID. A, urbanization. B, the level of age groups being much more susceptible to mortality. And we know that developed countries have higher, age group populations in greater percentage. Even within India, we know that Kerala, for example, or Maharashtra has higher age groups, which are more susceptible. And thirdly, crowded spaces and events being foci for transmission. So these are three things that we do know about COVID. And what is happening in Maharashtra now, if we go a little deeper, I would like to refer to the excellent model developed by TCS and Prayas for Pune. And they have come out with a paper which had predicted in mid-December, on 14th of December, that there is going to be a second wave in Pune. And they had submitted it also to the municipal corporation. It was not given much importance. If you see that model, it's very interesting. It shows that essentially, I'm summarizing this in simple language, that in the first wave, it was the most crowded and somewhat relatively lower income areas of Pune which were worst hit. Areas like Bhawanipet and other parts of central Pune, where there were more cases. And other areas like Aund and Kothrud were relatively spared in the first wave. They did not have that kind of very high peak. Today, we are seeing larger number of cases in Pune in areas like Aund, Kothrud and Karvenagar, which were spared in the first wave. So there have been pools of susceptibles which accumulated. And now in this situation, if with relaxation of restrictions, we have super spreader events, those can lead to further second level of outbreaks of cases. So what we are seeing is a series of interlinked micro epidemics. It's not just a single epidemic. There is a series of complexly interlinked micro epidemics which led to the first wave and now is leading to the second spurt. And there is a modeling. This modeling has clearly predicted how many cases we can expect in Pune and probably also what needs to be done to deal with it. If I have time, I can also share that about what can be done, keeping in view this kind of an understanding.
Yes, and we will definitely come to that because I think it's very important that as we discuss the problem, we also find the solution and talk about that. Yeah. But Dr. Shukla, what you say is very interesting. And, the example that you've given of Pune and different areas that were earlier affected and now. But what I'm trying to understand is how is it that Maharashtra was topping the charts in the first round and this time as well, or just like Dr. Salunke says and warns, and he's warning that we seem to be just the trendsetters and rest of the country should just be alert of what's coming.
Yeah, there are at least 4 factors regarding Maharashtra which have made it susceptible. A, high levels of urbanization. B, in the initial stages, high levels of international travel. C, certain areas, crowded areas within our large cities, which provided the, initial first, phase of, the outbreaks. And 4, a somewhat higher aged population in the age pyramid. All these 4 factors have been there in Maharashtra. So, but as Dr. Salunke said very correctly, we cannot rule out the fact, that other states are not going to see more cases in the coming period. But even in a less urbanized state, like say Bihar, or UP, perhaps these kind of concentrated populations where we see this high scale transmission, it may be spread over time. Whereas in Maharashtra, because of large urban agglomerations, Maharashtra has the largest total urban population in the country among all states. So this is one reason which we really need to see that has been the kickstarter for the epidemic in Maharashtra. And now we are seeing the continued effects which are continuing over time. But these 4 factors regarding Maharashtra need to be kept in mind. And we can have a strategy based on this also,
right.
Which will take care of at least some of these specificities.
Right.
Yeah.
Sameer Dalwai, there's also something that was referred to earlier in the show, and we've discussed it in the past as well. While we haven't yet found any evidence of any specific variant or a specific mutated strain which may exist in our state, which is perhaps spreads faster than the others, is that something that the state needs to very closely look at and do exhaustive survey and sampling to see if that could be one of the causes?
Yes, Tanvi, so especially in a viral pandemic, one always has to be aware about the possibility of new variants coming in, because the virus also as an organism will try to protect itself and save itself and mutate so that it can perpetuate. So that's always a possibility. But so far, with all the institutions working, they haven't really reported a great outbreak of any other variant. I read that out some 90 samples, there was perhaps one which had a different variant, but I'm not very sure about that. But let me take you. I mean, first and foremost, brilliant being on the panel with all the other three brilliant doctors. Wonderful points made by everybody. I'd just like to say basic MBBS level microbiology. The basic difference between a virus and a bacteria is that a virus spreads from one cell to the other, one part of the body to other, one person to another, one city to another, one state to another, one country to another. That's why you have pandemics of viruses, but never of bacteria. So it's in the nature or the character of a virus that it will spread. Now, even if we look back a month or two back, we knew that the first so-called wave had led to about 40 to 50%, maybe 55% of the population developing, either having got the infection or having developed the immunity to that infection, though they hadn't been diagnosed. It still means about 50-60% of the population was susceptible to it. Now comes in the vaccination. And even as of now in Maharashtra, about 13 lakh people have been vaccinated. So in fact, on your show on Mirror Now on 19th February, I had suggested the possibility of opening this up for the common people at large. And fortunately, that's happened in the last 1 week now. So unless everybody either develops natural immunity, having suffered the virus clinically or subclinically, or has been vaccinated, everyone who has not is susceptible. And hence, if they will at some point or the other definitely catch the infection. What is gratifying at the moment, though, is that the case fatality rate is not high at all. It is much better than what it was in, say, May, June, or July. What is also gratifying is that people are definitely more aware than what they were at that point of time. So this leads to a better reporting to the doctors, earlier reporting, earlier investigations, and earlier treatment. Having said this, the government also is cognizant of a few factors. The central government team had come to Maharashtra and they have recommended some measures, which of course are measures like better contact tracing, higher investigations, though the tests per million are perhaps the maximum in Maharashtra. They've also advised about looking or taking care to prevent the super spreaders, and of course increasing the public health messaging on COVID appropriate behavior, wearing masks, sanitization, and social distancing. So this again, definitely it has to be even spruced up even further than what it has. We can't say that we have done enough. But finally, I'd like to say that it's the nature of a pandemic that there will be one big wave at the beginning, but that's not the end of it. It's not like a V-shaped, what we say for the economy. There are bound to be smaller spikes as the pandemic dies out, and that's nothing but an interplay between the percentage of population which has become immune and that which hasn't.
Okay.
So I think we are on that track right now.
So one interesting point that now multiple panelists have made is that, and it is heartening that while yes, the number of cases on a daily basis are going up, we've now reached 10,000 fresh cases. The fatality is not as much as we saw the last time around. Dr. Srivastava, does that also indicate that this could be a variant of the virus which, while it spreads faster and evolved to spread faster, perhaps became less fatal in that evolution process?
That's quite likely. That's quite possible, quite likely. Already, in this second wave of COVID, already there are entire families, entire clusters of 8 or 9 or 10 people in a family who are infected, but only about 2 or 3 of them required to go to ICU and only one of them required to be on a ventilator. This is different to the numbers that were around in the year that COVID first started. So yes, as the point was being made earlier, that is the nature of small viruses, the RNA viruses. The minute you look at a virus of this size, it will change its track. It will change its track. That is such is the nature of the beast. It is just going to find a way to try and protect itself. And that whether it is a break in the infective process, or it is vaccination, or it is a combination of both of them, or there is COVID appropriate behavior that becomes more easily implementable, all of that is going to make a difference in the numbers that we see. However, the point to be made is that the minute you take your eyes off the virus, is the time that you're going to be caught napping, and it's the time that somebody is going to pay a price. Hopefully, it would only be a mild illness, but that is not going to be the only thing that happens to COVID or variants of the COVID-19. So things are changing for sure. They are changing. Like I keep saying, this is the nature of RNA viruses, the smaller viruses. They are very tricky. They are sly. They're also very elusive. The viruses of this category, and you need to be able to prepare. When you say that you're looking at having a strategy for a virus like this, you need to be able to prepare for this kind of the nature of the virus to trick you, or at least keep you, in a situation where you're not going to be all the time ready for the kind of things that this virus does. So I think again, like I'm making the point again.
Right.
I think there is something to be said about keeping eyes wide open and learning every day about the numbers that are coming our way. A lot of the times now, globally, a lot of the times, infectious diseases follow mathematical models now. It's not so much a matter of saying, look, this is where it has happened in a geographical area. There are now very good models that will tell you as to what kind of numbers you're likely to be looking at in the next maybe 2 weeks, 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, 1 year's time. And that is the place to learn. If you are able to learn that, preempt that, and make a strategy from there, then there is a very good chance you will be ahead of the curve. If not, then it's a matter of learning as time goes on. Tanvi?
Yeah, yes, and I think, when it comes to this virus, it's a new learning every day, and we're still trying to, understand and figure how it goes around. So let's focus on what can be done, basis what we know, basic even some, mathematical models as well. Dr. Shukla, let's start with you, and then I'll go to Dr. Salunke.
Yeah. So I'll refer back to the TCS Prayas model, which has been published. And I think everybody, all public health experts in Maharashtra should look carefully at that model. It had predicted the second wave in mid-December. And at a pretty accurate level, it had predicted that this wave will start in early March and it will go up till a peak somewhere in mid or to end March, and it will continue to roughly middle of April. But it will be a lower peak compared to the first wave, definitely. And I'm not going into the details. It's something called agent-based modeling, which is a very unique and different way of modeling. It's different from the usual compartmental, modeling, which is being largely used. So I'm not going into the technical details, but we should look into this model, which had predicted the second wave quite accurately. Based on this, based on the understanding that emerges, which I have already pointed out, that which are the populations which are getting affected by the second wave. And we need to see that susceptible pools are there in every city or in many cities. These are the populations which need to be proactively protected. And higher levels, so number one, higher levels of testing in susceptible populations whenever there are cases, because these are the places where it's going to spread more rapidly. Secondly, preventing super spreader events in susceptible populations. This is very important. So large gatherings, crowded places, large events of any kind definitely need to be prevented. With this, we can flatten the wave. We cannot prevent the wave completely, but we can definitely flatten it. Number three, universal mask use. The model has also shown us that universal mask use significantly dampens the transmission. So there's no doubt that that needs to be done. Number four, health system preparedness, so that our hospitals, including public hospitals and also wherever required, additional insourcing of private hospitals, are geared up again, maybe not exactly. So the Pune model says that the second wave will be somewhere at maximum to the level of 70% of critical cases compared to the first wave. So if in the first wave we had about 3,500 to 4,000 critical care cases, in Pune at the peak per day, at any point of time, now we will have something like 2,500. So maybe it may be a little less or more, but the point is it's not going to be at that level, but it is significant. And the same holds true for maybe other cities like Nagpur and so on, where we are also seeing, this kind of phenomenon coming up. And finally, and also not very, it's not unimportant, is the vaccine not as a measure to control the epidemic, but to protect the susceptibles. So, the elderly people and the healthcare workers, if they are protected by a much more rapid rollout of the vaccine delivery, we have the doses, but we don't have still the sufficiently expanded delivery systems. Then at least we can protect the most susceptibles in the population. It will not influence the overall trajectory of the epidemic very much, but it will definitely protect them. Just final point, for Dr. Dalwai, plague and cholera are both bacterial pandemics, which the world has seen. So it's not that only viruses cause pandemics, but yes, in the 20th century and 21st century, it has been viruses, and there are certain reasons for that, which we can discuss.
So,
So I think the Prayas TCS model should be looked at carefully by the public health authorities in Maharashtra, and it can help us to design a more effective method of epidemic control, at least in cities.
Interesting. So, I mean, for Maharashtra, we need to be a lot more cautious than the others, because the argument from one side is, but I mean, all of us wonder this. It's not as if to say other parts of India, people are ultra cautious, or people are not stepping out, or they are in some kind of lockdown, or they're not attending weddings, or they're not attending parties, or they're not, shopping in crowded markets or celebrating their festivals. But it's, for some reason, it seems to be impacting Maharashtra a lot more. Now, Dr. Salunke, what about the testing strategy? We seem to have gone from 40,000 to 80,000 very quickly. But even now, if you see, and if you compare it to Maharashtra's population, our levels are much lower than the national average. Do we need to ramp it up further?
Obviously, the answer is yes, we need to ramp it further. And as a matter of fact, it is testing not for the sake of testing. Testing of whom and from where. As Abhay was describing, we have to now start having our focused strategy in those most vulnerable sections of the community. And that's how, if we pick up the cases earliest and then immediately, take the further steps, I think we'll be able to break the transmission and also protect the persons. And from that perspective, we are in detailed discussions with the Pune Municipal Commissioner and the authorities in Pune, which need to be also taken up in other cities, that, private doctors, particularly general practitioners, to whom the cases, the simple cases of fever, let's start with the fever. So every fever case, if we are in position to identify and suspect it and test it, then further carry it forward. And that is what is being done now in Pune, in those areas. And I'm pretty certain that this strategy, in addition to other strategies, will help us to, one, ramp up the testing. And testing itself is a first step. Further consequential steps need to be followed up, and that is what is going to happen. But I want to tell you one thing, that the suggestions that have come out in this discussion, most of them are now put into operation, and that will certainly help. However, the only and major issue that is a weak link in this entire affair, or what we call as the community response and participation. Today, again, please note, the health system is now tired. All other people who were supporting the health system have their own, issues to be dealt with. For example, today we are meeting. 31st March is one of the deadlines for everyone in the government. So their departments are also trying to find out how to meet those deadlines. Plus now they will be taken for the help of controlling the sporadic or the outbreaks in this particular area. So please remember, health system is under tremendous pressure. So people's participation, at least, please don't, be responsible for transmission. If there is a participation from people, and the last point that I want to make it very, very strongly, and that is, even though Abhay said vaccine may not be a very critical point, I personally feel we have delayed. As a matter of fact, for last 1 month, I was pleading with Government of India, do not restrict access to the vaccination. Why do you want to do that? Now, fortunately, thank God, there say durust hai, things have started. But allow people to take vaccine. And I not only insist on 60 and 65 or comorbid. Today, if you see in Pune, the number of cases between the age group of 25, 30 to 40 is not small.
Yes.
All these youngsters are coming out, they are doing their job, they are busy in their professions, and these are the people who also need to be protected. Immunization is one of the major tools, if appropriately. In next 3 months, if we could vaccinate at least 15 to 20% population of Maharashtra, I think we'll be.
But Dr. Salunke, let me ask you this question, because
will have to give adequate vaccine. Thank
yes,
you.
but you yourself also said that the healthcare system itself is stressed now, that is the sector that has battled this head on for over a year. Are we in a position to open it up to the next lot? I mean, I am just taking few cities, for example, Mumbai, Pune, the cities where we are seeing a rise. But we are just about opening the centers and people are queuing up in large numbers. Dates in Pune are not available till end of March. They're not available. That's the extent of registration people are doing right now. So can we actually step it up from here on? Is the infrastructure ready?
Tanvi, please involve. I'm asking Government of India, why are you not involving large number of private hospitals? Please remember, this is a vaccine which is to be injected. Like you take tetanus toxoid, this is also an injection. What you require as a prerequisite, one institution where people who are going to be vaccinators could be trained. What they should be trained? That they should be trained to ensure that if there is any anaphylactic reaction or adverse events, immediately they can manage or at least properly refer. So the institutions where such possibilities are there, and there are large number. In Mumbai, every private hospital has the capacity and capability to do that.
Okay.
Why Government of India is insisting only on few hospitals? Expand it now.
That also it took, obviously because the Government of India seems to have told the state governments a plan just a few days before it started. Then the states had to hold conversations with the private hospitals. So I believe about 20 of those hospitals have just come on board yesterday and have started now. That will ease some pressure in cities like Mumbai. Sameer Dalwai wants to make a point. Go ahead, please.
I'm also spokesperson for the Indian Academy of Pediatrics, and I'm very, very happy and proud to say that our president has written to the Honorable Minister of Health, Government of India, that pediatricians are the most used to vaccinating children. And we have offered the services of 33,000 pediatricians of our association to be enrolled in this task, the national task of being employed for vaccinating adults. So I'm very happy to add the might of the Indian Academy of Pediatrics as well. And as like everybody else has said, we need to make this as a public message for people to come out and get vaccinated. And of course, those with special circumstances need to come out, but everybody else. And while we close this, we must know that yes, there is an increase in the numbers, but let us also respect the transparency of the government of Maharashtra for putting out all the data. And let's not be unduly worried, but we have to keep up our guard and continue with the vaccine.
There is one more other thing, Dr. Dalwai, that I wanted to ask you. And now you will have to wear the hat of a party spokesperson as well for this one. What Dr. Salunke was saying, obviously the onus is not just on the government, it's also on people. But people are fed up. If you leave it to people, they're not going to follow the norms. They're not following the norms at the vaccination center where there is chaos and crowding which is taking place right now. The only way out is then tougher penalties, tougher action against the violators. Is the government seriously going to step that up?
Two things. Quickly, if you see again on the roads of Mumbai, you will see people now masking up because there are marshals and cops at various junctions stopping cars and asking them for that. The second point is, another important recommendation made by the Central Committee was to restrict the crowding of people to 50. These two important things have already been decided and they will be out there as soon as possible. So we are taking all kinds of measures to prevent a total lockdown, but at the same time ensure stricter discipline amongst the people.
Okay, on that note, I'm going to thank all four of you for joining us and really shedding the insights that you have on why Maharashtra seems to be acting very differently than rest of the country, where also the cities and towns have opened up. But Maharashtra is the one that's looking at these number of cases. The warning from experts is it can happen in your city as well. So the COVID hasn't gone away. Despite the fact the vaccination is on, you need to be a lot more careful. You still need to follow the norms. So Maharashtra government needs to step up on the testing. They need to step up on the action against the violators. Punish those who are not following the norms. Just show some more strictness. One night curfew, one day curfew, lockdown is not going to send the message across. It is symbolic to maybe bring about some amount of fear in the minds of people, but that doesn't seem to be working. So we need to really step it up. Until there is a large-scale vaccination, there is no other way. Now, our panelists have actually set the stage ready for our next half of the conversation on this issue. And the next half of the conversation is the pace of our vaccination.